In this episode, I chat with Tyler Bender, Director of Consumer Sales at Alexana Winery in Oregon. We talk about what sets Oregon wine apart, why hospitality is everything in the tasting room, and how personal connections drive both loyalty and sales. From customer reviews to curated wine trips in Argentina, Tyler shares how Alexana is crafting experiences that go far beyond the bottle. Welcome back to Foundry Talks. I am Rachel Stojanovski, and today I am joined with Tyler Bender, who is the Director of Consumer Sales at Alexana Winery in Oregon. Tyler, it's so great to have you with us.
I know. Thanks for having me. How's the day going?
Great. Yeah, we're excited to learn more about you and Alexana. For people who may not be familiar, will you share just a little bit about your background as well as Alexana's background?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Tyler. I'm originally from Colorado. Go Broncos. Yep. Uh, Originally from Evergreen. Went to school in Fort Collins, Colorado. Always had a restaurant job, but fell in love with wine. Waiting tables at a steakhouse, Sunny Lubick Steakhouse in Fort Collins, Colorado. Who would have known? Yeah, really kind of landed at a restaurant with a great wine list and some really dedicated servers that just loved sharing stories of producers. And I just got bit by the wine bug immediately. I got my level 1 and level 2 sommelier certification through the International Wine Guild in Denver. Quickly followed my mom's advice to move to Walla Walla, Washington to study enology and viticulture. Thought I wanted to be a winemaker. Uh, Turns out they're just farmers, really. But that was a great experience. Yeah, I worked for a number of great wineries out in Walla Walla, but quickly realized that I missed kind of the people, the relationship building, and sales truly. So ended up moving back to Denver. Worked for a distributor in the Denver area, selling to mostly restaurants, like on premise accounts in the Denver area, and that was amazing. That really opened up my world to wine, like outside of the U.S. and worldwide.
Yeah.
But we had an amazing domestic side of the portfolio. Had some amazing Oregon producers like Brickhouse, Patricia Green, and Chehalem. And I said, like, wow, I didn't know Pinot Noir could taste like this. uh, yeah, missed the vines, missed the connection to the actual winery. And so after a couple years, decided Oregon was home and moved out to Oregon in 2018. Worked for the Stoller Wine Group for several years, mostly in a wine club management role. So they had a very big, robust wine club. So that was an amazing experience. Lot of hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, great experience doing that. And yeah, the past few years have been in kind of the leadership positions with some wineries, and it's been an amazing journey. Yeah, I'm about a year in at Alexana, which blows my mind. That year went by so fast, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fantastic place. The vineyard and the winery is absolutely stunning. You definitely need to come out and visit at some point. I'd love to host you.
Yeah,
And
no, just from checking out the website and, learning a little bit more in our conversations, it seems like just such a magical place.
yeah, it really is. And really all of Oregon
Yeah.
truly is very similar to Colorado, what I kind of grew up with. So it's very easy transition and kind of acclimating here. But yeah, so, I work for Alexana Estates, one of 3 wineries under the portfolio of Dr. Ravana. He owns Ravana Vineyards in Napa and Corazon del Sol in Argentina. So it's this amazing practicing cardiologist, just a true inspiration to all of us. He's the sole owner, no investors. It's just him with a passion for hearts and wine. And
It's just
he's doing
incredible.
great.
I
Yeah.
was reading a little bit about his story and just the connection and how he even decided to, invest in Oregon and start growing in Oregon. And it's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about some of the wines that are, I guess, more famous or well known in Oregon versus some of the other locations?
Yeah, absolutely. So Oregon is a Pinot Noir kind of mecca. So that is hands down, the gem of Oregon. Pinot Gris, Chardonnay, sparkling. I mean, gosh, there's a number of grapes that are kind of trying to follow along, but Oregon just has this amazing climate and areas to grow Pinot Noir. So it's just kind of this perfect perfect area to grow, where, a lot of the other spots, California, up in Washington, just gets too hot. It's just not the right climate, not enough rain. And yeah, it's a very, very finicky, delicate, delicious grape. So we're in this, nice little gem. So it's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, and it looks like from what I can see, in addition to just great wines, you also have really amazing activations and activities to provide that next level of hospitality to guests and members. What is it about? You talked a little bit about just your passion for hospitality, starting in the restaurant world, getting to connect with guests and other partners. But what is it really about hospitality and specifically the winery space that excites you or has made you decide to make this your career?
That's a great question. Sonic kind of was the tipping point for me. Like I love hospitality is like at my core. You want to know what I'm about? It's Danny Meyer's Setting the Table book. It's like the core hospitality. You gotta
Yeah.
have the service piece to it, but
Yeah.
and Alexana has been a pioneer at amazing hospitality for years. And so, me being a year in, I'm honestly still learning every single day what they've been known for so long, but it's honestly really basic things, right? It's making a human connection with someone, finding out what they like, and asking them what they want.
Yeah.
Granted, yeah, it's at a beautiful vineyard and winery, so I think that that's what draws both consumers and employees like myself. Is I drive 11 minutes to one of the most beautiful places in the whole
Yeah.
world, which
Yeah.
I'm incredibly fortunate in that realm. But yeah, it's rare that we deal with an unhappy person at the winery, right?
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's great, and that's why I love not only the adjacent wine industry, but your guys's hospitality realm as well. It's all connected. Everyone's having a great time, and I think that really makes our days a lot better.
Yeah. No, couldn't agree with you more. Obviously, in an addition to just welcoming guests, I'm sure sales is often a topic of discussion. That's, your primary focus, I'm sure. So, in your time with Alexana, has your approach to sales changed or evolved? What lessons have you learned about, that next level kind of high touch hospitality environment?
Oh my gosh, so much. Yes, I'm talking with our general manager Jeffrey Lewis every single day about
Yeah.
sales. Right at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it's how we pay for the tractors and
Yeah.
salary and everything else. We need to sell wine. Unlike Europe, right? We have a lot of fixed costs, so we
Yeah.
need to do a good job. But Alexandra has been it's been an amazing experience, very eye opening for me, especially coming from the restaurant world and the wineries that I worked for, maybe a little bit larger. But to me, it's like, oh, we need to increase sales. Well, we need to take more tables, like at a restaurant, right? Well, Alexandra does a great job of, well, you can't be everything to anyone. So let's take less tables. Let's focus on the correct customer, focus on the correct demographic. Really spend time with your top 20% of customers. I mean, don't ignore the other 80, but really put a lot of time and effort into making those connections with
Yeah.
the correct people. And then, at the end of the day, I mean, we go back to that kind of personalized hospitality, right? Our servers in the tasting room specifically, preferably only get one table at a time. Maybe, we're getting into busy season, so two tables, but you know, having that personalized experience and that genuine human connection, just I truly believe you have to have a great product, obviously, but I think sales can come kind of naturally after that too. But so
Yeah.
we do an amazing job, and Alexana's been doing it for years of pre-visit communication, right? Just talking to the consumer. Hey, when
Yeah.
you're going to come visit us, you're going to come visit us for a couple hours. Like what are you looking for? Like, what would you want to leave with? And people will tell you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, which is great. But so yeah, small tweaks and listening to what the consumers want. That's what Alexana has done incredibly well. That's what I'm still absolutely learning to do.
Yeah. No, that's such a good point too, because I think sometimes you just have that knee-jerk reaction, like you said, like, well, more volume is more sales. But then I think that often can lead to burnout on servers, not being able to give the best experience to guests. And then that doesn't really convert into guests that come again and again and again. And I imagine that there is almost like two audiences. You've got guests. You don't have to be a member to visit. You can visit just individually, and then you also have a membership, right? Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
So I would assume that it's also really nice for the staff to have the membership component because they just get to engage with those people over and over again. So that relationship building just is so much deeper, which is so great. But then that also leaves, time and the bandwidth to have enough touch points and be able to provide that personalized service with guests who maybe it's their first time or they've just come once, they're visiting, whatever. So it's just a really great approach because I think it's hard not to want to just more, more, more. But if you just focus on nurturing those connections, like you said, I think that in the long run, that pays off so much more.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I'm still learning, but Jeff, my boss and the GM, he would absolutely say is just the connection and the relationship building is hands down the most important thing that we do every single day. So, right. And especially we were kind of talking about, one of some of the challenges in
Mm-hmm.
not only our industry, but just, all of hospitality is, people are going to less places, right? So
Yeah.
you get that consumer there, you need to do everything possible to make sure that they have a great experience or else
Yeah.
they, won't come back. I mean, chances are they're not going to come visit you again. So
Yeah.
at least having that connection outside of the physical space, so important.
Yeah. Well, that kind of leads into something else I wanted to talk about. But you have like amazing reviews online. And so I think that is clearly a testament to what is happening when guests are visiting Alexana. But how do you approach the on-site experience? You touched on a little bit the pre-visit touch point. So like communicating with them before their visit, which is super great. How do you ensure consistency for every guest? You've got a team. I don't know how large your team is, but to make sure that everyone, you get that buy-in from your team, like, okay, we all are on the same page. This is what we want to do for every guest. How do you do that? How do you create consistency so that everyone can have an extra a special experience?
Well, I hope Doc doesn't hear this, but sometimes you have to turn people away, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And that, right? Obviously, the flip side is, hiring more people, which we're doing. So if you know of anyone, we're always looking for amazing storytellers in the wine space.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. The only way to stay consistent is to not overwhelm the staff, right? You can't promise this high-end, in-depth tasting experience and then not actually offer it.
Yeah. Not deliver on it.
So having some other activations, right? Something else, hey, we can't squeeze you into that tasting experience that you're wanting this time, but we have this other option. Obviously, please, feel free to hang out, grab a glass of wine at the deck. Um, but yeah, it is definitely challenging. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of time
Yeah.
to make sure that those operations are followed and those processes are in place. Um,
Yeah. And
I'd say that the gem is having the staff that cares, right?
yeah.
They'll be the ones to push back when
Yeah.
you're trying to
They'll
squeeze
let
in
you know.
or eat a few more tastings or trying to do something. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, we agreed on XYZ. Let's deliver that experience together. So I mean, it's truly a team effort, but yeah.
That. So do you do anything to kind of request reviews or just to keep that top of mind for guests when they're there? Or is it
Yes.
just they have such an outstanding experience? You don't have to do much? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I appreciate you tying it back to that. Alexana's in specific is mostly organic.
Okay.
Um, I've worked with my team a couple times to try some new things to help increase the amount of reviews that we're
Yeah.
getting. We're still working through what hits with this specific team, right? Every person is different. Every team's going to be a
Yeah.
little bit different. Um, what I have found in my experience, the best way to do it is to ask the customer, right?
Yeah.
On the backside of our tasting menu. So when you come in, you get the wine, your names are going to be on the menu, right? Very personalized, engagement. On the back of it, you're going to have like just a little verbiage that says, please help us leave a
Yeah.
review, help us grow, especially as a family owned and operated business, we rely on word of mouth. So that's helpful. But what really tips the scales from a customer perspective is the server going up to you saying, hey, my boss, we've got a little competition going on to see who can get the most, reviews online. Would you
Yeah.
mind helping me out and throwing my name out on there? And especially
Awesome.
after an amazing experience, that's how you get people to, leave reviews.
Oh, I'm sure everyone's like, absolutely. Where's the link? Sign me up.
Exactly. And, I think after talking with Trey
Yeah.
Evans a little bit more, like, I think that the reviews will be more crucial, as,
Yeah, as
Google
things
AI and
change
all of
and
these things change, as SEO continues to develop. I think it'll
yeah.
be crucial. So it's a big focus point for me in
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of that shakes out for sure. But the fact that everyone is just having such an amazing and it sounds like really genuine and authentic experience, I mean, that's just such a natural way to do it. And especially having the server who's been, they feel that connection from them after that whole experience. So it just seems like such a natural process.
Yeah.
Um,
And, I think when, another good point is, and it's easier said than done, but when you see a review that's not at that 5-star standard, right,
yeah,
you need to reach out to them and figure
yeah,
out why and invite them back and really make sure that every single person that is especially leaving a review, you are doing everything possible to make their time amazing.
yeah. No, that's such a good point. We are, we don't think about that as much, but that is definitely something that I think anyone in this space has dealt with. And so yeah, what does that process look like? If you don't mind touching on that a little bit more. So you see that review come in and then in my experience, you obviously want to leave the public response that everyone can see, but then behind the scenes, what is happening? And have you, for the most part, would you say that it turns into a positive experience after you've followed through with your process?
Yeah, I've done it through various wineries, not just Alexana too, but
Yeah.
right. And we're human, right? Someone could be having a bad day
Yeah.
either on the customer side or the server side, whatever. But it's amazing how many people you can get to flip that narrative by just simply reaching out. So
Yeah.
I mean, well over 15, 20 times I've reached out to someone who left, a 1-star review, had a really bad experience, and just invited them back, shown them that, hey, what they were looking, wasn't the correct experience. You should have, let's steer you in this direction, crave, give them that individualized attention.
Yeah.
But genuine, right?
Yeah.
Genuine hospitality experience is what's needed. And I'd say 95% of people will, change their mind, which is amazing.
That's awesome.
Thankfully, without asking, right? I think that's what
Yeah. That's
was
the key.
helpful.
You can't ask.
Don't ask. They go ahead and change the review, and
Yeah.
especially from a small business standpoint, one bad review can be
For the
detrimental to the
difference.
overall score, and then, to
Yeah.
everyone's perception of you,
Yeah.
even if they were totally lying.
Yeah, I know. Don't fight with Google. We're just that's awesome. So I understand you offer a high-end trip to Argentina. Is that in conjunction with the property that you have that's part of the collection down there? And if so, tell me more a little bit about that. What is it? How does that tie into the guest and member experience?
Yeah, so the trip in Argentina, I don't know a ton about. I haven't been on it. Wink, wink. I need to go. It's something they've been doing for many years, and it's been really fascinating for me to view it, outside of actually participating in it, from an employee standpoint. But they definitely have the right recipe, right? It's a smaller group, 20 to 40 people is generally what Jeff likes to hit, but everything's taken care of from the time you step off the plane. Everything's done. Uh,
Dream.
yeah, our director of viticulture is down there, the winemakers, the GM, Dr. Ravana, right? All the key players, all the personalities
Yeah.
are on that trip, and you're with them the entire time. And yeah, not it's expensive, but the quality is what's important, right?
Yeah.
Jeff always says, it doesn't matter if it's a cheeseburger, but it has to be the best cheeseburger in the world,
I
right?
love it.
That's what's important. And I think what they do really well is allow customers and club members both just access to things that
Yeah.
they wouldn't normally get. So, they're always bringing down wine bottles that you just can't get.
Yeah.
Introducing them to people that takes introductions to. So I think it's that access level,
Yeah.
not necessarily exclusivity, because that can always be a tricky slope. But I
But
think,
just an experience, it sounds
yeah,
like that they wouldn't otherwise get to just do if you were trying to do something like this on your own.
exactly. Yeah.
It's
Right.
amazing.
You're going on a boat for a day and
Yeah.
having some amazing food and wine, right? You're going to the
Amazing.
winery, right, in one of the most beautiful places in the entire world, right? Having amazing food and wine. And then you're going to Patagonia and then you're having amazing food and wine. When everything evolves around, right, food and wine, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's what I'm told, a once in a lifetime experience. It's a great way to connect with folks. Obviously, a lot of folks become club members if they weren't already, but club members, can get some exclusive benefits there as well, member pricing on
Yeah.
wines and all those things. But it's great because our customers are really tied to all three properties. And I think it's really important to, I mean, at least Dr. Ravana and the business model that they've created is to link them all together and not keep them separate. A lot of companies do that, and I'm not saying one's better than the other, but for us, you become a member at Alexana, and now you get access to Corazon del Sol and Ravana vineyards as well, right?
That's amazing. Yeah, I was going to ask how, if any, integration, because I know some people keep their, properties in their portfolio very separate, or it seems like a seamless experience. So in this portfolio, the members have access to all of them. Is there any specific property information or like a broader message that is consistent throughout all three? I mean, I feel like Dr. Ravana's message throughout everything is probably pretty strong, but curious how they all play into each other and what each one brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. They all follow the same core values, right? Sustainability, hospitality, great wine. Um, but they're all also very unique too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's nice that he allows them all to be tied together and, having that access to everything, right? You become a member at Alexana, you can have access to some of the very high end, exclusive, highly allocated Napa Cabernets, right? That's a big piece. And I think just in general, right, allowing customers the transparency of everything that's going on between all three brands, and just allowing them, again, I think access is one of the key words, to all three properties.
Are there any events or things that kind of take place at all three, or do you have members that go to one event at one location and then they, can't miss this event at another location? Like, I'm sure members have favorite things about all different locations. Do you see a lot of that where members typically take advantage of that access to all three, or do you find that they kind of stick to one location?
No, I think like our top customers absolutely try and take advantage
Yeah,
for all of them. Obviously, Argentina is a little bit trickier to
right.
get to, but you'd be surprised how many people will go down there just for that, right?
Amazing.
We do have a number of events. We have harvest parties every single year. So right before the harvest starts, right around September ish, we have just these epic dinners, and people will go to both. So like
That's
ours in
amazing.
Alexandria in Oregon is in August, and Napa is in September, and again, it kind of just goes back to like everything about the Argentina trip, just like high quality, not overdoing it. Sort of like, knowing your max. Like our max at Alexana is 70 to 80 people. Like
Yeah.
we won't do a dinner bigger than that because then we can't provide that hospitality that everyone knows and loves.
Yeah.
Ravana is even smaller, just the team smaller and the property
Yeah.
smaller, but people will go to both of them, and
Amazing.
consistently, right? Every
Yeah.
single year, oh, we can't miss that trip
Oh,
in
so
September.
cool.
So But, it just goes back to like what we're looking at. It's like, what are they doing right? Just amazing food, amazing wine, amazing hospitality, and then, the consistency of doing it all the
Yeah,
time. Yeah.
that's awesome. What are some of the biggest challenges you're facing with consumer sales? And are there anything that's happening today that's kind of a surprise to you that's becoming a challenge?
Great question. Yeah, I think like here in Oregon, I mean, it's been like that in Napa forever too, but right, the amount of wineries with high quality wine is amazing. If you're a consumer coming into Oregon, or even if you live here and you're going to plan a wine tasting day,
It's like,
I
where
mean,
do I go? There's
the
so
options
many
there
options.
are way too many options,
Yeah.
and so many places, I'd say 70-80% are making amazing wines. So I think, especially when I went to school, like in Walla Walla, we'd go wine tasting at 7 or 8 wineries. A
Yeah.
little bit different. You're tasting a little bit less wine, kind of more of going up to the bar. But we're lucky if people are going to 3 wineries
Okay.
when they're out here a day.
Yeah.
So I think that's a challenge. However, again, you just lean into what you're good at, right? You can't be everything to everyone. So I don't think that's necessarily surprising, and I feel good about the outcome of that because I believe in what we're doing, and I think that hospitality will trump any creative marketing plan. But what I think is interesting is the ecom
Hmm.
version of our industry right now. There's For whatever reason, the technology just doesn't keep
Hasn't
up.
quite caught up
Yeah.
yet.
And I mean, we right, in most tasting rooms, we require a lot of systems, right? We have wine club, we need reservations just like a
Yeah.
restaurant, right? It has to be shipping, right? You have to have compliance, batched in there, inventories, multiple warehouses, point of sale systems. So it's challenging, but if someone could crack the code on producing a fantastic
All in one.
system that's not like tens of thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
there's a couple out there that could do everything that I want from a
Yeah.
website standpoint, but cost like what we planted for the vineyard,
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
know. We joke
I mean,
all the time about how hospitality is just, it feels like it's the last industry to adopt the tech, for whatever reason. But I feel like there could be, as much as that can be a challenge, I think it does leave room for more of that human connection. There's I know there's, some industries where you can do everything without ever having to talk to someone, and it's just unavoidable. And I think that is also what makes it really special, is that you just still have that human connection no matter, where you're going, what you're doing. But I hear you. The tech needs to catch up a little bit.
agreed. Yeah, and I think we'll get there. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we've got a wine club that they developed a couple years ago. That's like more of a subscription style. So you
Oh,
get
cool.
charged $100 a month, and then it goes into like a wine bank account, and you just buy wine, whatever, which is great. But right, the tech doesn't work with that. It's all like we have to do some behind the
Manually
scenes
do it.
stuff to make that work. But to your point, regardless of the process, it's about keeping engaged with your customer
Yeah.
um, and keeping them, up to date on whatever you're doing. But yeah, that's going to be the thing that kind of trumps all technology in general is that connection and
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah. What opportunities do you see in the future for Alexana or the industry in general over the next couple of years?
I think this kind of theme that we've been talking about, right? Especially right, go to any restaurants or I mean any experiences, you can tell that hospitality has taken a dive post COVID, right? And so I think continuing to lean into just taking care of people and listening to their preferences, I think will be, I think that's where we're going to go. And food as well. I think that's a big miss in our industry, especially locally. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, there are some amazing chefs and some amazing wineries doing some great things, but I think food and wine experiences will pop up a lot more in the next next couple of years, right? who doesn't want to have an amazing winery in the vineyard, right?
I know. I just saw like a headline the other day that was like traditional wine dinners are dead. And I think that was just a lot to do with post COVID. Everything had stopped. No one was doing it anymore. And I think it's just taken a little bit of time for everyone to get back up on their feet. But really, I mean, they're so amazing in those locations. I mean, I've seen beautiful setups like tables just down the middle of the vineyards, and I'm sure they're just incredibly special for guests and for members and for the staff to be a part of it. I think that's another big part of it. Who doesn't want to be working in that environment?
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, but if you do it once a year, how are you going to expect it to take off?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There it goes back to your whole thing, consistency. We got to just be consistent.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
then, there's always the times that there's going to be some bugs and everything out there. So there's always the challenges, but I think consistency is, extremely important.
Yeah. So other, advice that you may have or words of wisdom for other brands in the luxury food and beverage space who are either just getting started or trying to revitalize what they're currently doing. I mean, I think that was just amazing advice, being consistent and getting back to doing some of those activations maybe they used to be doing, but anything else that they should be thinking about?
It's something that I love about Oregon and especially the hospitality industry as a whole, but right, asking fellow competitors or businesses what's working, what's not working, I think is so important, and not a lot of people do it. It's something that I fell in love with the industry up in Walla Walla, and then here as well is right. It's not uncommon to see winemakers sharing, numbers and sharing advice, and hey, that's kind of how the Oregon wine industry was born, is a group of people, a number of businesses, right, just working together, solving through it. But
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be amazed. I've reached out to so many general managers and presidents of wineries in Oregon just to be like, hey, can you teach me something? Like, can I learn from you? Like,
Yeah.
what's working, what's not working? And everyone's so helpful and gracious to be able to share some of data and insights. But yeah, I think it's a great way to find some of those trends and see what's working and get advice, because I think so often you can get pigeonholed in your company's ideas and mindsets. It's always nice to have that third party of someone who's excited and willing to share.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. I think, we kind of throw around the term gatekeeping a lot. And it's like, instead of us feeling the need to keep everything so secretive and competitive, like, let's just help each other out. I think when someone does well, it just only benefits everyone else. And yeah, I think there's even, with us at the Travel Foundry, we often think like, okay, we can't figure out a way to get this work, but we've seen it, so we know it's working. So let's reach out. Like, let's just ask. I think people are usually much more willing to help or offer words of advice or have been in a challenging situation that, like, yeah, I remember when we were there, like, let me tell you what we did, and maybe it'll be helpful. So I think that's
Right.
great
Yeah. And
advice.
it was really eye opening. So when I was at Stoller in the wine club role, right? It's all direct to consumer, right?
Yeah.
It's a recurring revenue stream. So it's so important to our industry. But Nike reached out when they were going more to direct to consumer, and they're like, "Hey, can
Yeah.
we come like pick your guys' brain?" And I'm
Amazing.
thinking like, Nike wants to talk to us,
Yeah.
like, amazing,
Yeah.
But it, always be learning,
Yeah.
and I think it pays off. But yeah,
It shifts your perspective of the brand, doesn't it? Like,
totally.
I'm
Yep.
sure now you're just like, oh, I love Nike. They're like
Yeah.
real people, down to earth.
Yeah, it was just, you always thought of them as just, the robots, and
Right.
actually see human beings come in and ask questions. It's cool. Yeah,
Yeah. That's
love those.
awesome. Okay, well, we've talked so much about wine and food and beverage and hospitality. So I would love to just, lastly, just pick your brain. What is your favorite travel experience to date, and what made it special?
Wow. So I recently just got back from Italy,
Mm.
and I think that was definitely one for the books. Um,
They do hospitality right over there.
that everything that I've talked about, they took
Yeah.
care of in Italy. Uh, Everyone was so friendly, so welcoming. Didn't care what we were doing, or why, but they just wanted to know more and
Yeah.
to make sure that we had a great time. And it was eye-opening, and then some of the best food in the whole world.
Yeah.
We need that bread over here ASAP.
And we need it all, the bread, the pasta.
Take it all. So yeah, that was a great experience. We'll definitely be going back.
That's amazing. Well, Tyler, thank you so much for being with us today on Foundry Talks. And if guests or listeners, see, I just default to guests always. It's just if listeners want to learn more about Alexana or the winery, where can they do that?
So they can just go to the website's alexanawinery.com. Or just give us a call, shoot us a text, and
Perfect.
we'll get back to you for sure. But yeah,
Awesome.
this was so much fun. Thank you very much for having me. I think you
Absolutely.
guys are on to something. I'm excited to see you all grow and take this industry where it needs to be. I think, right, the winery, some people, it all connects together, and so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Thank you. Yeah, we are too. And we're so glad to have had you on. We'll make sure to link the alexanawinery.com in the show notes for guests here, listeners who are interested. And if you want to listen to more, check out Foundry Talks on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.